In this lesson 9 and the associated problems, we deal with number line problems where different variables or numbers are compared in many different ways. And we also deal with problems where distance formula and the midpoint formula are utilized. Now please note that any number line problems associated with solving equations or inequalities are deferred to the second category, equations and inequalities. Now suppose we have a number line with -1, 0, and 1 marked, as shown here. We have 4 different regions to consider when we compare numbers. First, let's consider when x is bigger than 1. Then square root of x, and x squared, and x cubed are ordered this way from smallest to largest. Well, to see this better, we express everything with exponents like this. And when x is bigger than 1, the more power we have with x, the bigger the number becomes. You can convince yourself by testing with x equals 2. Now let's consider when x is between 0 and 1. Then these are arranged this way, from smallest to largest. Again, we express everything with exponents like this. And you know that the more power you have for x, the lesser the number becomes in this region. In other words, as the power of x increases, the number gets closer to 0. You can convince yourself with x equals 0.1. Now let's move to the region where x is less than -1. If x is negative, you cannot deal with the square root of x, so only x and x squared and x cubed are compared. Here, x squared is always positive, but x and x cubed are always negative. So x squared is the largest. If you cube any negative numbers less than -1, the number becomes smaller. So we have this order, and you can test with x equals -2. Finally, let's consider when x is between -1 and 0. Again, x squared is always positive, and x and x cubed are always negative, so x squared is the largest in the whole negative region in the number line. Now in this region, if you cube the value of x, it will get closer to 0, which means x cubed is larger than x. And you can check with x equals -0.1. Now the distance formula and the midpoint formula for the number line. Let's suppose we have a number line with 2 points, A and B. Well, let's say point A has x sub 1 as a coordinate, and point B has x sub 2 as a coordinate on the number line. Then to get the distance between points A and B, you just subtract the right-hand side number minus the left-hand side number, which is x sub 2 minus x sub 1. To get the coordinate of the midpoint between points A and B, you just add those two numbers and divide it by 2. Please don't forget that this lesson 9 is not everything about the number line. We have second part of lesson and problems later in the second category. Also, there is another version of the distance formula and the midpoint formula when you go into an XY plane. We'll deal with those later. Okay, let's begin solving problems.